The neural interface blinked its steady blue pulse against Commander Kellex Vorthek's temple as he surveyed the pristine command deck of the Dreadnought Dominion's Edge. Every surface gleamed with mathematical precision. Every crew member moved with choreographed efficiency, and every system hummed in perfect harmony. This was order. This was control. This was everything Kellex had built his life around. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "All systems nominal, Commander," replied his second-in-command, Lieutenant Nexer Voss. "The Terran colonies in Sector 7 have been successfully pacified. Resistance. Cells eliminated. Population compliance at 97.3%. Kellex nodded, a ghost of satisfaction crossing his angular features. The humans had proven more troublesome than anticipated when the hegemony first encountered them 3 years ago. Their chaotic nature, their unpredictable strategies, their infuriating refusal to submit to logical governance had all been methodically crushed under his systematic approach. "Prepare transition to Sector 9, he ordered. "The mining colony there requires ... restructuring." The bridge crew moved with mechanical precision, their enhanced neural implants synchronizing their actions to his will. This was how civilization should function: one mind, one purpose, one perfect design. Kellex had personally overseen the subjugation of 47 worlds, each one transformed from chaotic disorder into harmonious compliance. The hyperspace tunnel opened before them, reality bending to accommodate their passage. As they emerged into normal space, proximity alarms suddenly shrieked across the bridge. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Lieutenant Voss reported, his voice tight with confusion. "Configuration unknown. It's not following standard approach vectors." Kellex's jaw tightened as he studied the tactical display. A small craft clearly human in origin, but modified beyond recognition, was dancing through the asteroid field ahead of them. Its movements defied every principle of efficient navigation, weaving between obstacles and patterns that seemed almost artistic. "Hail them," he commanded. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made Kellex's controlled composure crack for just a moment. A human female sat in what appeared to be a jury-rigged command chair, her wild auburn hair floating in zero gravity, her mismatched clothing a riot of colors that hurt to look at. But it was her eyes, vibrant green and utterly fearless, that struck him like a physical blow. Well, she said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place. "Another one of your pretty death machines, all clean lines and bad intentions. I'm Rhiannon Kelstorm, and you're trespassing in my playground." "This is Commander Kellex Vorthok of the Hegemony Fleet," he replied, his voice steady despite the strange flutter in his chest. "You will surrender immediately and prepare to be processed for compliance integration." Rhiannon's laugh was like breaking crystal sharp, beautiful, and utterly destructive to his sense of order. "Oh, honey, I don't think you understand. I'm not surrendering anything. In fact, I'm here to make you an offer. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. Chaotic elements, blah blah blah," she interrupted, her ship performing an impossible barrel roll that should have torn it apart. "Yeah, I've heard the speech, but here's the thing, Commander Pretty and Precise. I've got something you want, and you don't even know it yet." Kellex felt his control slipping, and sensation so foreign it was almost nauseating. "Explain." "Freedom," she said simply. "Real, messy, beautiful freedom. And I'm going to show you what you've been missing in all that perfect order of yours." Kellex stared at the human woman's impossible ship as it danced through the asteroid field with casual disregard for physics. His neural processors ran continuous calculations, trying to predict her next move, but every projection failed. She was pure chaos, and chaos was anathema to everything he represented. "Commander," Lieutenant Voss reported, his voice strained. "Her ship, ... it's not showing up on long-range sensors. The signature keeps shifting." "Stealth technology," Kellex muttered, though he knew it was more than that. No stealth system could create such erratic readings. Nope. Rhiannon's voice crackled through the comm, as if she'd heard his thoughts. It's called creative engineering, mixed with a healthy dose of, I don't care what's supposed to be impossible. You should try it sometime. Her ship, a patchwork of human and alien technology that looked like it had been assembled by a committee of madmen, suddenly accelerated directly toward the Dominion's edge. Every tactical protocol in Kellick's mind screamed that this was a suicide run, but something deeper told him otherwise. All batteries, prepare to. Oh, come on, Rhiannon interrupted. If I wanted to blow you up, I'd have done it already. I'm coming aboard. Try not to shoot me before I can show you something incredible. The small craft approached their docking bay with the same impossible grace it had shown in the asteroid field. Kellick found himself walking to the bay, his crew following in perfect formation. He told himself it was tactical necessity and the prisoner, extract intelligence, maintain control. But deep down, he knew it was something else entirely. The airlocks cycled, and Rhiannon Kelstorm stepped aboard his ship like she owned it. Up close, she was even more chaotic than he'd imagined. Her clothes were a mixture of salvaged materials and jury-rigged technology. Her boots were mismatched, and her hair seemed to move with a life of its own. But it was her presence that truly unsettled him. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never known the comfort of absolute control. Nice ship, she said, running her fingers along the pristine bulkhead. Very, sterile. Do you ever get tired of all this perfection? Perfection is the goal of all civilized beings, Kellick replied automatically. Is it? She tilted her head, studying him with those impossible green eyes. Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like a prison. A very pretty, very efficient prison. Kellick's jaw tightened. You will be processed for compliance integration. Your chaotic nature will be corrected, will it? Rhiannon reached into her jacket and produced a small device that hummed with unfamiliar energy. Or will you discover that chaos isn't something to be corrected, something to be embraced? She activated the device, and suddenly the perfect order of the bridge wavered. Consoles flickered, lights pulsed in random patterns, and for just a moment, Kellick felt his neural interface stutter. The sensation was terrifying and exhilarating at once. What did you do? He demanded. I showed you a glimpse of what you're missing, she replied, deactivating the device. That was a chaos field generator, something I cobbled together from the wreckage of 6 different civilizations. It doesn't destroy order, Commander. It reveals the beauty hidden underneath, Kellick's crew stood frozen, their perfect synchronization broken. But instead of panic, he saw something else in their eyes: curiosity, wonder, life. Impossible, he whispered. That's what I thought too, until I met a hegemony defector named Zixtel Nomex, Rhiannon said. He told me about the old days, before the neural interfaces, before the perfect order. He told me about creativity, about spontaneity, about the joy of not knowing what comes next. Zixtel Nomex was executed for sedition, Kellick said, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. Was he? Rhiannon's smile was sharp as a blade. Or did he escape to show others what they'd lost? Care to find out? The abandoned mining station hung in the void, like a metallic tumor, its scarred hole testament to the hegemony's ruthless efficiency. Kellick stood on the observation deck of Rhiannon's impossible ship, watching as they approached the derelict structure. Every tactical instinct screamed that this was a trap. But something deeper, something he'd never felt before, whispered that it might be salvation. Zixtel wasn't executed, Rhiannon said, her voice softer now. He was too valuable to kill. Your hegemony needed him to design their perfect control systems. But they underestimated human chaos, specifically mine. The docking process was unlike anything Kellick had experienced. Instead of precise mechanical coupling, Rhiannon's ship seemed to flow into the station's bay like liquid metal. The sensation was nauseating and beautiful at once. How? He asked. Organic technology, she replied. I found it in the ruins of the Viridian Collective. Turns out, when you stop trying to control everything, amazing things start to happen. The station's interior was a maze of converted corridors and repurposed chambers. But it was the sounds that truly unsettled Kellick's laughter music. Voices raised in animated conversation. Chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. Commander Vorthok, a familiar voice called from the shadows. I wondered when you'd finally come. Nomek stepped into the light, and Kellick's world tilted. The former hegemony architect looked ... different. His cybernetic implants were gone, replaced by bioorganic interfaces that pulsed with their own rhythm. His movements were fluid, unpredictable, alive. You're supposed to be dead, Kellick said. I was, Zixtel replied. In every way that mattered, until I learned what I'd helped them steal from us. Us, all of us. Every species the hegemony has pacified. We were never meant to be perfect, Kellick. We were meant to be free. Rhiannon led them through the station's corridors, past chambers filled with beings from a dozen different worlds. All of them bore the marks of former hegemony control neural ports, compliance scars, the hollow look of processed minds. But they were healing, becoming something new. The neural interfaces don't just control, Zixtel explained as they walked. They suppressed creativity, spontaneity, the ability to dream of something better. I designed them to be perfect control mechanisms. I never realized I was creating a form of living death. They entered a vast chamber at the station's heart, and Kellick stopped breathing. The walls were covered in art, chaotic, beautiful, impossible, art, paintings that moved, sculptures that sang, poetry written in languages that didn't exist. It was everything the hegemony had taught him to fear, and it was magnificent. This is what we were before, Zixtel said. This is what we could be again. It's chaos, Kellick whispered. It's life, Rhiannon corrected. Messy, unpredictable, beautiful life. A child, a human child, with modified hegemony, implants ran up to them, holding a drawing that seemed to shift and change as Kellick watched. The image showed a great ship breaking apart, its crew scattering like seeds on the wind. But they weren't dying, they were becoming something new. Is that your ship? The child asked Kellick. Yes. It's very pretty, the child said. But it looks sad, like it wants to fly, but doesn't know how. Kellick knelt beside the child, studying the impossible artwork. How do you know how to draw like this? I don't, the child replied. I just let my hand move and see what happens. But that's not how creation works, Kellick protested. There must be a plan, a structure, a purpose. Why? The child asked, and the simple question shattered something inside Kellick's chest. Rhiannon's hand touched his shoulder, gentle but insistent. Because that's what they taught you to believe. But what if they were wrong? What if the best things in life come from not knowing what happens next? Kellick stood slowly, his mind reeling. Around him, the station hummed with chaotic energy being, working together without central coordination, creating beauty without predetermined purpose, living without the crushing weight of absolute control. My crew, he said suddenly. They're still on my ship, still trapped in the system I helped maintain. Then free them, Zixtel said simply. How? Rhiannon's smile was like sunrise after eternal night, the same way you're going to free yourself. One impossible choice at a time. Kellick stood in the modified laboratory, where Zixtel had been working for months, on what he called the Liberation Protocol. Banks of bioorganic processors hummed with chaotic energy, their surfaces rippling like liquid thought. The sight should have been repulsive to someone raised on hegemony precision, but Kellick found himself drawn to their organic beauty. The neural interfaces aren't just control devices, Zixtel explained. his fingers dancing across the living console. They're suppression fields. They don't just enforce compliance, they actively prevent the neural pathways associated with creativity, spontaneity, and independent thought from forming. And this will reverse that? Kellex asked, studying the swirling patterns on the bioscreens. Not reverse, Rhiannon interjected from where she worked on a jury-rigged transmitter. Liberate. There's a difference. You can't undo what's been done, but you can choose what happens next. The process was unlike anything in hegemony medical doctrine. Instead of surgical precision, it required surrender, allowing the bioorganic interfaces to merge with his existing implants. Trusting in chaos to find a better path, Kellex lay on the adaptive table, feeling the living technology respond to his presence. "This is insane," he whispered as tendrils of bioorganic material began to interface with his neural ports. "Good," Rhiannon said, her hand finding his. "Sanity is overrated anyway." The sensation was indescribable. For 34 years, Kellex had lived with the constant hum of neural processors, the steady pulse of controlled thought. Now, suddenly, that artificial rhythm was changing, becoming something organic, something alive. He could feel pathways opening in his mind, corridors of possibility he'd never known existed. Colors became more vivid. Sounds gained texture and meaning beyond their functional purpose. The sterile air of the laboratory suddenly carried a dozen different scents, each one telling a story of the beings who had passed through this space. "How do you feel?" Zixtal asked. Kellex sat up slowly, his perception of the world fundamentally altered. "Different. Alive. Like I've been sleepwalking for my entire life." "That's because you have," Rhiannon said. "We all have. The hegemony turned us into beautiful, efficient machines. But machines don't dream. My crew," Kellex said suddenly, "they're still trapped, still under the old system. That's why we built this." Zixtal gestured to the massive transmitter that dominated the chamber's center. "The liberation protocol can be broadcast, but it requires someone with command authority to authorize the transmission. And you want me to do it. I want you to choose," Rhiannon said. "You can go back to your perfect ship, your perfect crew, your perfect order. Or you can take the biggest risk of your life and trust in chaos." Kellex approached the transmitter, his newly liberated mind processing possibilities at a rate that would have been impossible under the old system. He could see the cascade effects, not just his crew, but every hegemony ship in the sector, the breakdown of centuries of control, the chaos that would follow. "The hegemony won't let this stand," he said. "They'll send the pacification fleet. They'll destroy everything rather than lose control." "Probably," Rhiannon agreed. "But that's tomorrow's problem. Today's problem is whether you're brave enough to set your people free." Kellex's hand hovered over the activation controls. The bioorganic interfaces in his mind showed him visions of what could be his crew, awakening to their own potential. The rigid order of the hegemony fracturing into beautiful chaos. Beings across the galaxy discovering the joy of unpredictability. "What happens to me?" he asked. "I've spent my entire life being the perfect hegemony commander. Without that, what am I?" "You're about to find out," Rhiannon said. "And that's the most terrifying, wonderful thing in the universe," Kellex thought. Of the child's drawing, of the ship that wanted to fly but didn't know how. He thought of his crew, moving through their perfect routines, like ghosts of what they could become. He thought of all the worlds he'd helped pacify, all the chaos he'd systematically destroyed. "Do it," he said, and activated the transmitter. The liberation protocol burst from the station like a ripple in space-time, racing toward the Dominion's edge and beyond. Kellex watched the transmission's progress on the bioorganic displays, seeing it spread from ship to ship, planet to planet, mind to mind. In the distance, the Dominion's edge began to change. Its rigid formation broke apart as the crew's awakening minds rebelled against artificial precision. Lights flickered in patterns that suggested celebration rather than malfunction. The great dreadnought was learning to dance. "What have I done?" Kellex whispered. "You've started a revolution," Rhiannon replied, her hand finding his. "The most beautiful, chaotic, impossible revolution in galactic history." The Dominion's edge had become unrecognizable. Where once a perfect war machine had cut through space with mathematical precision, now something wild and beautiful carved impossible patterns through the void. Its hull bloomed with modifications as the crew's awakened minds found new ways to express themselves. The ship was alive, and it was magnificent. Kellex stood on the bridge, though bridge no longer seemed adequate to describe the organic command center his crew had grown around themselves. Lieutenant Voss approached, his movements fluid and purposeful rather than mechanically precise. The neural scarring around his temples had been replaced by flowering bioorganic interfaces that pulsed with creative energy. "Commander Voss," said, then paused. "Is that still appropriate? Rank structures seem ... limited now?" "Call me Kellex," he replied, marveling at how strange his own name sounded without the weight of absolute authority. "We're all equals in chaos." Rhiannon materialized beside them, her personal ship having merged with the dreadnought in ways that defied conventional understanding of matter and space. "The hegemonies noticed," she said, gesturing to the tactical displays that now resembled abstract art more than military readouts. "We've got 17 pacification fleets converging on this sector." 17. Kellex felt a moment of his old panic before the sensation transformed into something else: excitement. "How many ships is that?" "Approximately 3,000, Voss reported, his voice carrying wonder rather than fear. "Under the old system, we'd have calculated the odds, found them unacceptable, and retreated. And now?" Kellex asked. "Now we improvise," Rhiannon said with a grin that could have powered a small star. The crew had spent the past week awakening to abilities they'd never known they possessed. Engineers became artists, sculpting new technologies from pure imagination. Tacticians became poets, finding beauty in the chaos of combat. Navigators became composers, plotting courses through hyperspace that sang with harmonic resonance. "Status of the Liberation Protocol transmission?" Kellex asked. "Spreading faster than the hegemony can contain it," reported Zara Zenith, the ship's former communications officer, who now served as something between a diplomat and a prophet. 47 ships have joined the awakening. Entire planetary populations are breaking free from neural compliance. Kellex studied the tactical display, watching as hegemony forces moved with their characteristic precision toward the center of the rebellion. But something was wrong with their formation. Ships moved with less than perfect coordination. Gaps appeared in their ranks, and several vessels had broken from their assigned positions entirely. The protocol is affecting them too, he realized. Even the pacification fleet. "Chaos is contagious," Rhiannon said. "That's what makes it so dangerous to systems built on control." Admiral Koreth Vex's face appeared on the main display, her features a mask of cold fury. Kellex had served under her for 7 years, had thought her the perfect embodiment of hegemony ideals. Now he could see the cracks in her composure, the way her left eye twitched with suppressed uncertainty. "Commander Vorthok," she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You will surrender immediately and submit to reconditioning. This madness ends now." "Actually," Kellex replied, feeling Rhiannon's hand slip into his, "it's just beginning." The Admiral's expression faltered for just a moment, long enough for Kellex to see the fear beneath her perfect control. "You're infected with chaos contamination. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have," Kellex said. "And I can see that you're afraid. Not of us, of what we represent. The possibility that everything you've built your life on might be wrong." "Enough," Admiral Vex snapped. "All ships, engage the rebels. Cleanse this sector of contamination." The pacification fleet moved forward with mechanical precision, but Kellex could see the hesitation in their ranks. The Liberation Protocol had planted seeds of doubt, even in their most loyal crews. "What's the plan?" Voss asked. Kellex looked around at his awakened crew, at Rhiannon's impossible smile, at the bioorganic displays showing the approaching storm of ships. Under the old system, this would have been a tactical calculation: analyze enemy strengths, identify weaknesses, develop a strategy for victory or survival. "We don't have a plan," he said, and felt the liberation in those words. "We have something better." "Which is?" Zara asked. "Faith in chaos," Rhiannon replied, "and each other." The first enemy shots illuminated the void like deadly fireworks. The Dominion's edge responded not with calculated precision, but with organic creativity, its hull flowing like liquid to absorb impacts, its weapons painting brilliant patterns across space. They weren't fighting a battle, they were creating a masterpiece. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. Part 6. The Dance of Liberation. The battle raged across 3 star systems, but it was unlike any conflict in recorded history. The pacification fleet moved with mechanical precision, while the awakened ships danced through space with organic grace. Their movements unpredictable and beautiful. What should have been a massacre became something else entirely, a work of art painted in starfire and possibility. Kellex stood at the heart of the Dominion's edge. His consciousness merged with the ship's bioorganic systems. He could feel every impact, every near miss, every impossible maneuver his crew dreamed into existence. The old him would have calculated odds, analyzed outcomes, sought the path to victory with minimal casualties. The new him simply trusted in chaos and creativity. Kellex Rhiannon's voice reached him through the neural link they'd established. "Look at Sector 7. He shifted his awareness to the tactical display, where something unprecedented was happening. 3 hegemony dreadnoughts had broken formation, their rigid attack patterns dissolving into something organic and fluid. The Liberation Protocol was spreading through the enemy fleet like wildfire, awakening minds that had been dormant for decades. "They're joining us," Voss reported, his voice filled with wonder. "The eternal order, the perfect symmetry, and the absolute truth, they're all coming over." Admiral Vex's image flickered onto the main display, her perfect composure finally cracking. "This is impossible," she snarled. "I will not allow chaos to consume everything we've built." "You don't get to choose," Kellex replied, feeling the weight of truth in his words. "None of us do. Evolution isn't about what we want, it's about what we become." The Admiral's ship, the massive dreadnought Final Solution, accelerated toward the center of the awakened fleet, its weapons charged with the cold precision of absolute order, preparing to eliminate the source of contamination once and for all. "She's going to ram us," Zara announced. "No," Rhiannon said, her eyes bright with sudden understanding. "She's going to try too." She turned to Kellex. "Remember what I told you about the chaos field generator, about not destroying order, but revealing the beauty underneath?" Kellex nodded, his mind racing through possibilities that defied conventional logic. "The Final Solution has been Korith's ship for 15 years, Rhiannon continued. 15 years of her crew serving under perfect order, their creativity suppressed, but not destroyed. What if we could reach them? The bioorganic transmitters aren't powerful enough to penetrate their shielding," Voss objected. "Then we don't penetrate," Kellex said, understanding blooming in his mind. "We invite." The plan was insane, beautiful, and utterly impossible. The awakened ships formed a complex pattern around the approaching dreadnought, their bioorganic systems resonating in harmony. Instead of fighting the Final Solution, they embraced it, surrounding it with a field of pure creative energy. Admiral Vex's ship struck the center of the formation, but instead of collision, there was transformation. The rigid hull of the Final Solution began to ripple, bioorganic interfaces blooming across its surface like flowers after rain. The crew's awakening was violent and sudden, 15 years of suppressed creativity erupting in a symphony of chaos. and beauty. Status report, Admiral Vex demanded, but her voice carried a tremor of uncertainty. Her bridge crew turned to look at her, their eyes bright with newfound awareness. "We're free," her tactical officer said simply. "For the first time in our lives, we're free." The transformation spread through the pacification fleet like a chain reaction. Ship after ship broke from formation, their crews awakening to possibilities they'd never imagined. The orderly battle lines dissolved into something organic and beautiful, a celebration of life and creativity that painted the void with light. Calix opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Calix, formerly of the Hegemony. To those who are awakening, welcome to chaos. To those still trapped in the old system, we offer you a choice. Join us in uncertainty, in creativity, in the beautiful madness of not knowing what comes next." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of voices, each one unique, each one free, joining in a chorus that had never been heard before. The rigid hierarchy of the Hegemony crumbled, replaced by something organic and alive. Admiral Vex stood alone on her bridge, surrounded by crew members who no longer saw her as their absolute commander. "This is wrong," she whispered. "This is chaos." "Yes," Calix said gently. "It is, and it's beautiful." The former admiral looked at her hands, at the bioorganic interfaces that had grown around her own neural implants. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I am." "Neither do any of us," Rhiannon said, her image appearing on the view screen. "That's what makes it an adventure." Slowly, hesitantly, Admiral Vex smiled. It was the first genuine expression Calix had ever seen on her face, and it transformed her completely. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Across the galaxy, the Liberation Protocol continued to spread, awakening minds and freeing souls. The Hegemony would respond with everything they had. But chaos had already won the most important victory. It had shown the galaxy that there was another way to live. Calix stood on the bridge of his transformed ship, Rhiannon's hand in his, watching as the awakened fleet prepared to spread the revolution to every corner of known space. He had lived for control, but chaos had set him free. And now, together, they would free the galaxy. The dance of liberation had only just begun, and it was the most beautiful thing in the universe.